Missouri Scholars Academy of 2018. Today, I am going to tell you a secret. But first, I must tell you a story. I've always loved stories. That's probably why in the real world I teach high school English. Stories have the power to transport, to transfix, and to transform. The story I'm telling you today starts about 8 years ago, during my sophomore year of high school. I was a nerd, and like many a nerd, I loved to read one specific 7-volume set of stories about a boy wizard named Harry Potter. It makes sense that I was obsessed with these. Growing up in my small hometown of Lawson, Missouri, I was remarkably unathletic, astoundingly awkward, and interested in many things that my peers seemed to care nothing about. I spent so much time waiting for a letter to arrive to whisk me off to a magical place where the world was different. Turns out, I spent so much time looking for owls that I didn't think to check the mailbox. That's bad. When I got the letter announcing my acceptance into Missouri Scholars Academy, though, the first thing I thought was not, I got into Hogwarts, or I'm gonna go meet so many awesome people. It was, they expect me to share a room with a complete stranger for 3 whole weeks? I can't even share a hallway with my sister in peace. As I was preparing this speech, I asked former and current scholars to share with me their MSA story. And as it turns out, my reservations were not uncommon. Kendall McMullen of Liberty, Missouri, MSA 2018, mentioned that she was skeptical of how this could be anything more than just a run-of-the-mill summer camp. Sarah Cornell, one of my PSD scholars in 2013, said she was nervous about spending 3 weeks away from home, longer than she had ever done so. And Alyssa Dukeman, from my year as a scholar, 2010, had to have the fear of God put into her by her gifted teacher to get her to college. We all probably had doubts coming into MSA. But just like me, I'm sure many of you found those doubts fade away as you moved into Twain and discovered all of the wonderful weirdness that we have here. When I came here, I was terrified to start a conversation, but I thought the classroom was a pretty safe spot. It's where I could hold my own. I had the pleasure of taking a major taught by one of the great MSA faculty members of all time, Paul Rommel. His class was called Taking a Chance. It was a statistics class, and I promise you there is no correlation between me taking that class and me teaching high school English now. In his class, I thought we were going to have worksheets and problem sets, that you could get a gold star by getting all the answers correct, but in there, we didn't really care about getting the right answer. The only way to get a gold star was to ask the right questions. It was a place where I didn't know the playbook, a place where I found it okay and safe to fail, and that was one of the things that made all the difference. My minor, on the other hand, was writing. I took a class on murder mysteries with Sarah McGrath. I knew we would be writing. I didn't know we would be performing a dinner theater. I was a wallflower who enjoyed all the perks of silence and not making a scene. And yet in that dinner theater, I had a starring role. Don't worry, for those of you who just trusted your kids with me for 3 weeks, I was not the murderer. Nor was I the victim. I was the comic relief. Our humor was very highbrow. I had the misfortune of passing kidney stones during our little reunion that was the setting for our thing. So I spent the majority of it down the hall, yelling in agony so the people eating could hear me and then laugh at my fake pain. It was really reassuring to, 1, hear people laugh at that, and 2, to know that by being goofy and putting myself out there, I could bring joy to other people. That joy didn't stop after minor, though. Because as you all know, with minor, the other side of the coin is PSD. With Sarah and my PSD RA, Jenny Blank, we explored what it was like to talk about things that you don't get space to talk about in a normal high school. I learned that sharing emotions does not make us weak. It makes us powerful beyond measure. I spoke to somebody from my PSD group, Taylor Allen of Marceline, Missouri, and she told me that a few of the people she met changed her so deeply that she became a different person. One of my scholars in 2016 from Willard, Missouri, Hayden Windmiller, told me that it washed over him that he was not alone, that there were other kids out there with the same dreams, struggles, and gifts as me. Even another scholar from 2016, Ethan Bergman, was amazed when he came here from his town of 3,500 people, Rogersville, Missouri, to find that his roommate was Sri Lankan, and his suite mates were Costa Rican and Chinese. In that diversity, we all learned we are the same and different, and together those differences build a vibrant community. The defining moment of my MSA experience came in week 3. A few RAs, including one I will never forget, Nelda Kerr, gave us the opportunity to participate in a poetry slam. It was not the organized affair that Chris Holmes has made it to be in recent years. It was just a one-night, open mic kind of deal. We all went to write our best pieces, and I wrote about my experiences as a child. I knew that I was very different from my peers from a young age, and I knew that my peers were quick to point out, often in cruel ways, that difference. When I was a teenager, I didn't have the language for that difference that I now have, Asperger's. But I knew that it hurt. I wrote a poem about how MSA was like going out of the Muggle world and into a magical place, where I was accepted, where I felt safe and nurtured and challenged and supported, and most of all, that I could be a kid. I was asked to perform my poem after the poetry slam at Big Group. I gave the poem, and I got a standing ovation. The then director of MSA, Ted Tarker, tried to wave down the standing ovation, but he couldn't do it for a few moments. And that meant all the world to me. My life changed in those probably 30 seconds because I came in contact with love. Not the love you find in a Hallmark card, not the love you see as a react button on Facebook, but the kind of love that can shake the earth and move mountains, the kind of love that opens minds and saves souls, the kind of love that forever transforms all who encounter it. That love set me off on a journey to working here at MSA and back home at Grand Valley High School. And I've had the supreme honor of working with nearly 2,000 scholars after this academy. That kind of love is also at the heart of all of the stories you have told us by being here. The list goes on, and all of them are my favorites. I heard the story of how you got in the middle of a square dance. I heard the story of how you used kazoos to play a symphony. And I heard the story of how you learned all the great and terrible truths that come with the knowledge that we do, in fact, live in a society. I also learned the story of how a universe of emotion can be packed into a plastic bead. I will never forget the day I left MSA. My mom's first observation was that the program had to be good because all of the kids looked so sad. This is an ending, and it is normal to grieve. But this does not need to be the end. You are leaving here with new passions, perspectives, experiences, interests, and I am so excited to see what you do with them. Keely Flanagan of Chesterfield, Missouri, told me that she wants to use her newfound passion for spreading happiness to reach out to those who need a helping hand. Colin Wilburn, Vandalia, Missouri, told me he wants to continue community service in every community that he is a part of, to help give back some of the gifts that he has received. And Kaylin Beeman, O'Fallon, Missouri, wants to keep trying new experiences because she knows the point where life begins is where your comfort zone ends. Missouri Scholars Academy is a very special place. at times separate from the outside world. I am so glad that it allows us to temporarily escape from social media, especially in a time and day when the headlines sound like the beginning to a very terrifying dystopian novel. The world that you are re-entering is not perfect. And scholars, I am so sorry that we have left it that way for you. But this is a hopeful occasion. The sheer amount of talent and potential in this room blows me away. I have no doubt that those seated before me will change the world. You are artists, engineers, caregivers, scientists, comedians, actors, memers, philosophers, researchers, teachers, students, friends, and most importantly, authors. Every step you take after leaving Jesse Hall today will start a new chapter, a new story, one that I will be delighted and honored to read. The 323 scholars of this year's Academy represent the greatest story that has yet to be told. You may be heartbroken today, but as week 3 ends, week 4 begins. Honor this moment. Give hugs. Say goodbye. Cry if you must, but never forget one thing, and this is the secret that I told you about at the very beginning of this speech. In the story of your life, these 3 weeks were certainly a highlight. But if you choose, they need only be the prologue. Thank you.